plane hit the World Trade Center. We don't know what's going on yet, and blah, blah, blah. So I look over, and I'm looking at the World Trade Center, and I could just see the building burning. As I'm looking at it, I actually saw the other plane hit the building.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. On Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, at 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. A well-coordinated attack had begun. Shortly after, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 flew directly into the South Tower, witnessed by thousands. In just moments, the world changed forever. Our safe little world was infiltrated with chaos, fear, and anxiety. A little piece of everybody died along with the 2,996 victims. Terrorism is putting violence on display for all to see, so that the targets will comply with minimal use of force. On September 11, 2001, the 19 hijackers succeeded in that goal, temporarily. The battle plan that seemed to be perfect underestimated the resiliency of America, screaming from the top of our lungs that we will never forget. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, and don't forget to join. Ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and follow us on social media so you can find out exactly what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, I'm all alone. No, I'm just kidding. It's just me and Mike in the studio, because we're going to go over one of the darkest days in our human history. American history, and that's the tragedy of 9/11. Now, one of the things you're going to notice, Mike, is we're recording this pretty close to 9/11, but we're not going to air it for a month.
Yeah, we decided to not air it right after 9/11.
We don't want to exploit it.
No, we don't. We never exploit anything here. So
but we also don't want people to forget.
Exactly, and that's the whole thing. I mean, what do they say? When someone dies, once their name is last spoken, that's when they forget about them. We'll never forget about 9/11.
No, we sure won't. But let's throw a big shout out to Toyota Hackensack. They help us keep the lights on here. We don't trust anybody as police officers, but we do trust Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Now, Mike, it's just me and you in the studio today, but I did pull a social media question.
We're here with all our friends.
Yeah. Everybody who loves us. Yeah. The name of the person who sent in this social media question, I pulled it just for that.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's go_fudge_yourself with a U. Right?
Yeah.
That's our fans.
That. Yeah,
that's our fans.
That's our type of fans.
But it's actually a really good question. And Go Fudge Yourself writes, what's your biggest fear? Mike, what do you think?
Aside from Puerto Rican engineers
who look like Adrian Brody,
my biggest fear is fire. It's too unpredictable. I've in our law enforcement career, I'm sure you've been in a lot of burning buildings, and you get in there and that smoke overcomes you. You can't even take a deep breath in.
Were you a firebug as a kid? I was.
Allegedly.
I remember we
used to light things on fire all the time.
Yeah, you burn a match and you're just staring at the match. That flame is magical.
Yeah, that little match flame. But when you're in a house that's burning, whole different story.
It's the giver of life, okay, but it's also the destroyer of life. Fire and water, two opposite forces. Both can save your life
and take your life.
Yeah, very easily.
It's just too unpredictable.
Fire. Fire.
Too unpredictable to me.
Yeah.
It just.
Well, that's why we became cops.
Yeah, exactly. Not firemen.
Yeah, exactly. Mine's a little bit different. Early on when this podcast was started, that my original co-host dropped out, and I got kind of caught with my pants down.
That's why you pay me so much money now.
Exactly. And this was before you were even a thought as a guest, believe it or not. So now I am over-prepared, which creates a lot of anxiety for me, but I am always over-prepared. So if I know we're doing a show next week and I do my research, that my outline or my research is done a week prior. And we always have episodes on the back burner in case there's an emergency with a guest or something like that. You know, keeping myself prepared to probably my own detriment.
So it's a fear of being unprepared.
Correct. I just can't stand that feeling of like having to do everything. I feel so. If you ever waited tables, waiters and waitresses will call it a being in the weeds. Okay, you're chaotic. You used to have nightmares. We used to call them we used to call them weed mares. And yeah, when you're waiting tables, it's a real thing. You got 50 orders and they're all up at once and everybody wants water. It's kind of the same thing. You're just unprepared for everything.
You know, it's almost the same thing with getting somewhere on time.
Oh, I'm 5 minutes, 15 minutes early.
I hate sitting in traffic. You know, Tom Coughlin, the great coach of the great New York Giants, said one time, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, it's inexcusable.
Well, that just happened to me and my wife. We're going down to Atlantic City to just a weekend getaway. And I knew there was going to be short traffic, and I wanted to leave early. And, you know, it didn't work out. So we're sitting in traffic, and I'm like, we're going to be late. We're going to be late. I told you, you know, and it really, in reality, it's
not a big thing.
No.
It's not a big thing, but I like to be there. You know, I'd rather sit in the parking lot for 15 minutes than fight traffic and say, are we going to be on time? Are we going to be on time?
Yeah, you're 100% there. So it's an interesting question. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I'm still afraid of, but I will say this. It's okay to be afraid of stuff, but true courage is being afraid and doing it anyway.
Overcoming your fears.
Yeah, so I'm sure you ran into burning buildings, and there are times that
without thinking about it. Yeah. You know, just go in and do what you got to do.
As long as it's not paralyzing. So go fudge yourself. Thank you so much for sending that one in. Keep sending in your questions. We will try to get them on the air.
Fudge yourself from Mars Plains by any chance?
Yeah, it's a girl, I think. I do believe it's a girl, and she lives around there. But anyway, you know, so we wrestled with this particular episode. We could have filled this slot with a guest, but we wanted to pay homage to 9/11.
And we want it to be a more intimate setting.
In our own way.
Absolutely.
In our own way. And I don't think it's fair, because this is what I really want to talk about today is our personal experiences with 9/11. We touch on it from time to time in the shows, but I don't think anybody's ever heard the whole story of our true experiences of 9/11.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, both of us weren't there, so we don't know that whole experience, but we have our own recollection of it.
Well, we had a front row seat to it. That's the problem. You'll hear people throughout history, and there's big events. You know, the old timers, the World War II vets, where were they when Pearl Harbor was hit?
Where were they when John Kennedy got shot?
Right. So that's our parents' generation. Our grandparents' generation is Pearl Harbor, and so forth and so on. But you also got to remember, people in this particular area, in the New York metropolitan area, we had a front row seat to one of the biggest disasters in history.
Without doubt.
Kennedy getting shot happened in Dallas. You know, Pearl Harbor happened in Hawaii.
And
that's
when
worlds away.
Was Kennedy 65?
63, November 25th, 1963.
Wasn't even born yet.
Right. So
I wasn't a twinkle in my father's eye.
I've seen the Zapruder film a million times. I've watched everything. It's fascinating, but it's history.
The grassy knoll.
And we didn't live it.
Yeah, we didn't live it. Yeah.
9/11, you and I both lived through it. And I try to tell my kids what it was like, because to them, that's nothing more than John F. Kennedy.
My son was 3 months old. 3 months old. He was born June 3rd of 2001. And the World Trade Center was right after that. He didn't really live it. He doesn't.
So that had to be a whole new level of anxiety for you.
Without a doubt.
You don't know what kind of world you're going to raise your child in.
You know, my ex-wife, I mean, we'll get into it a little later, but my ex-wife said to me, because my in-laws had a house in the Poconos, she said, get home right now. We're going to go up to the Poconos. I said, I'm a cop. I can't run from this. Us in law enforcement and first responders, you know, even fire and EMT, you can't, something happens in your area. You can't just run away from it.
Well, there was only one place in the town I worked in. It was a company that made like the decking for aircraft carriers, which is apparently highly toxic. And I was told during FTO, if that place lights on fire, just start heading towards Pennsylvania. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places, but this is a little different.
Yeah.
This is war.
Yeah. It's a war in our country. I mean, we're being attacked.
So how did your day start off that day? You know, it was a Tuesday morning. You know, with
beautiful Tuesday morning.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Clear skies, everything. Like today, you know,
which kind of amplified the whole optics of everything because you saw it.
I was going to be working the afternoon shift that day, 3 to 11, and I picked up an extra detail we had, just checking trucks into a baler facility, you know, waste disposal and all that. It was in North Arlington, down the Meadows. You could see the New York skyline from where we're at. So they had a TV in there. You know, we used to just sit there and watch TV all day. And I brought my police radio with me. And one of our guys says he's going to be doing traffic on one of our roads that pretty much overlooks the New York skyline. He said, I'm going to be up here doing traffic. He said, I don't know if you heard, a plane hit the World Trade Center. But
at that time, a plane hitting the World Trade Center or any building in New York wasn't a cause for alarm. Yeah. I know it sounds bad, but, you know, I've said this on the show before. Corey Lidell, pitcher for the Yankees.
Exactly. Crashed into a building.
We crashed into a building, and it was, you know, it was a Cessna. It wasn't any big deal. Planes hit those buildings all the time. And that's what people from this area don't understand. Those high rises, they used to get struck all the time.
I mean, it's an easy target, too.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm sitting down. I look over my shoulder, and I could see the World Trade Center on fire.
How many years do you have on at this point?
I was hired in 96, so it was 2001, so 5 years or so.
So you had enough time on to have the wherewithal and knowing what the job is.
Yeah, yeah. You knew what was going on. So I turn on the news, and they have coverage of it, and they're talking about, you know, plane hit the World Trade Center. We don't know what's going on yet, and blah, blah, blah. So I look over, and I'm looking at the World Trade Center, and I could just see the building burning. As I'm looking at it, I actually saw the other plane hit the building. Witnessed this with my own eyes. Not on TV, nothing like... I mean, listen, we're 10 miles west of New York City. So the World Trade Center was like that. But you could still see... I really didn't see the plane, but I just saw smoke start coming out the other building.
You could see it from where I was, which was Parsippany. All right, but that's later in the day. You could see the buildings burning from where I was at that point.
Yeah. So, it was... I remember the newscaster on TV said, oh, another plane just hit. We can't confirm that it's terrorists. I said, you don't hit both buildings in one day and not think about it's a terrorist act.
That's some really bad luck. Yeah. You know, my day, I was in the police academy at the time. I got hired on June of 2001. Police academy started in August. So we had some time. We had a little bit of time in the police academy. We did our PT. We were supposed to be there 7 o'clock in the morning. We did our PT, showered up and everything, and that was an interesting thing, showering a bunch of Irvington guys.
Emasculating.
That's a whole other show in itself. But good guys, awesome guys. I love them dearly. We're sitting in class, and the captain of our academy, call him Captain Jack. I remember him very well. He was one of those old-time sergeants, wore the nut hugger shorts, you know what I'm talking about? Oh, yeah. And he was still in his PT gear. He used to run with us. I mean, listen, the guy was in shape, but you know, high socks with the stripe. This is 2001.
The 3 stripes on the top of the
Yeah, 3 stripes, nut huggers. We used to call them grapes because you could always see them. And I'm sitting in it was about the 3rd row back. To the right of me is a female transit officer. And he comes in and says, listen, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. Like we just spoke about. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, that's bad. I hope everybody's okay. You know, a little while later, we don't really know what's going on. They continue instruction. About 20 minutes later, another plane just hit the World Trade Center. They're scrambling jets, and you could hear the jets. I was in Cedar Grove, New Jersey. You can hear the jets. We're in So our training class was the old range in the Essex County Police Academy. So it's a brick wall. It's pretty much soundproof except for the doors.
I've been to a couple classes up there,
so you can hear the jets going across.
The fighter jets.
It's you're like, holy shit. And I'll never forget it. First of all, the woman next to me, the female officer next to me, her father worked in the World Trade Center, happened to work for Cantor Fitzgerald. So she had more concern than the rest of us. But when that second one, I remember looking over at her and I saw her face, and she was a red-haired girl. Her face went stone white. She goes, "Oh my God, my dad's in there." I was like, Jesus Christ. And it was chaos. Instruction stopped. Everybody, the captain was kind of, I want each department to call their department to see what they want to do. The department finally recalls us.
Put you out on traffic posts and stuff like that?
Well, before they recalled us, they're like, there's a blood mobile in town. We know this is going to be bad. Go give blood. All right. So if you want to go if you want to stop, give blood, and then come in. So I stopped and I gave blood, and because I was in uniform, I'm in an academy uniform, and I gave blood just in case. But
what color is your academy uniform?
It was blue. It was blue.
We wore gray with a black tie.
Oh God! At least we had patches on, and we had a badge, and
we had nothing like that.
So it was, we sort of look quasi police, but we had the baseball cap, you know, and
ours just screamed recruit.
So I finally get to the police department, and as I have to work my way through the traffic, because traffic all of a sudden went, because everybody just
jumped out of work.
Yeah, they just left work. So I had to go through West Orange. I had to go up Mount Pleasant Avenue, and I was hitting Eagle Rock. And Eagle Rock Reservation, you have a perfect view of the New York skyline. And I'm looking, and I can see it. I can see the towers burning. I can see this giant plume of smoke, and I'm like, oh my God. Because you got to remember, the town I was hired in, one of the questions I asked during the interview, I was like, hey, have you ever lost any officers in a shooting? No. The questions, because this was a job. I wasn't taking this to be a warrior. I was taking this because it was a job. And then all of a sudden, this quiet town that I was employed by, everything changed.
Became chaos.
Yeah, it was chaos.
Yeah,
the dispatchers are 3 deep on the desk, and our dispatch could be manned by one person. 3 deep on the desk, taking phone calls. People are calling them, and I can hear them as I go into headquarters saying, no, we don't have any word. Because people are calling up, my husband's in the World Trade, my wife's in the World Trade Center. And I get in there, and the strangest thing happened. So we had this old-time lieutenant. He goes up in the armory, and the chief says, get him a gun. We hadn't qualified yet. Okay, but again, nobody knows what's going on. Gives me my magazines, gives me my weapon. I'm wearing a belt, no gun.
No gun, yeah. They used to give us the red guns.
Well, yeah, I think I might have had the red gun in there. It looked like I had some sort of domestic dispute.
Put on a rubber gun squad.
Gives me my gun. Think about this. Gives me my gun and says, don't shoot anybody, kid. That's exactly what he said. Unqualified. I'm out on the road with a gun. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Could you imagine the liability to that town?
Oh, my God. But that gives everybody a window into how chaotic it was.
Absolutely.
You know, we all knew that this was an act of terrorism. There was no mistaking it.
We are at war.
Yes.
We're under attack.
Yes. An icon of the New York skyline just got destroyed. Now, the funny thing is the year before, I'm a brand new police officer. The year before, I had just stopped working for Toyota, and I did well in sales. So it was called the Gold Society or something. They took us. You went out to dinner at Blue. It was Murata Blue. It was the restaurant on the top of the World Trade Center. We ate there. It was a wonderful dinner. It was filet mignon, and then we stayed at the Millennium Hilton. They got us a room in the Millennium Hilton. So that was the night, and that night was weird because it was a real warm day. And the next morning we woke up, it's snowing out. So that was the year prior to that. I had just been there. And I remember going up in those elevators going, my God, man, this is really high up there. I'm sorry, it was Windows of the World.
Windows of the World.
And the bar on top of Windows of the World was blue, Murata blue or something like that.
I remember Windows of the World.
Yeah, so we had that meal there. And I'm watching this live on TV because there was a TV in headquarters. I'm watching. I was like, oh, my God, I was just there. You know, and that happened to a lot of people had that experience. You know, we were just there. We were just in New York last week. We were just here. And you just narrowly escaped the death.